What's up, guys? I'm back here with another deck list today. Now, today is a really special episode. It's the start of my new format. It's going to be a deck showcase format where I'm going to take players in the community and let them kind of like showcase a deck for everybody. Of course, I'm not always the best builder myself, and so this gives a great opportunity for everybody if you're really interested, or you just are a good player and you got some really like cool sauce and skills that you want to show off. This new format I'll be doing. So I have my two first guests. Of course, one is my frequent collaborator, Cheyne Runnels. Go ahead and say hi, Shane.
Hello.
And my second guest, Mystery Man himself. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey, it's Anthony Tardino.
And of course, Anthony, we have his Resolute Buu list today, Hero Buu, and it's a list that he's discussed with me actually before, and I think he's played against me on stream. I'd have to go back and look one of my streams from the fall or summer, but let's break down your list, Anthony. Go ahead and start wherever uh, you know, Resolute Hero Buu, man. Why?
So, I'm just gonna start with I took some notes before this. So I'm gonna start with kind of like my mission statement, why I built this deck the way it is. And when I saw Knee Clash in Showdown, specifically, I wanted to run all the cards that say your opponent can't gain anger, just so I can run 3 Clash of Wills and 3 over 9,000. So I started building this deck like right around when Showdown was coming out, and ultimately over 9,000 got cut because I found out that like having 9 auto levelers was actually too much for this deck. Like it just, especially with all the non-styles that are already in the deck, like it's just too much. So I cut the over 9,000 and just went Clash of Wills and ran only the cards that say your opponent can't gain anger that were that were actually pretty good. So that was kind of my mission statement with the deck, and then also Resolute Mastery is my favorite mastery. So I wanted to put together a deck that had this engine, and Resolute Mastery kind of allowed it to happen. And this is a deck I built as like a meme deck in the beginning, but over time it's kind of evolved into something that's it's won games for me that it leaves me puzzled. You know, why is this meme deck just absolutely annihilating people? So I don't think this is like a tier 1 deck. I think it's like a tier 1.5, but the decks that it beats them so sorely and just absolutely destroys them. It's pretty enjoyable, at least to be on the playing side of it.
I do know a few people have discussed the whole knee clash, Clash of Wells over 9K combination, which is like it's like the wet dream, and I'm so jealous that only heroes get it because it is just the coolest thing. I think somebody, Josh Gregory, talked about Dynamic Vegeta with that combination, for example. I thought it was really cool, but I really, that's like really like the first thing that I noticed when I looked at this list that I really like.
Yeah, it actually, for a blue deck, you end most games on level 3 and 4 because Boo with Hercule Ally, he does gain, at least 4 anger return most of the time with this deck because you got the overpowering attack and then also Blue Clash, you've got Boo's Company. So there's a lot of ways to get at least 4 anger. So if you got any remaining anger from the previous combat, um, that will push you over the edge to the next level, and then you've got 6 combat enders. 1/10 of your deck is a combat, or not a combat ender, an auto leveler. So 1/10 of your deck is an auto leveler. So it'll push you to the next level, which will push you for more anger, which will extend combat even further.
Hmm. So let's get into the event choices here. I see that you don't run, or sorry, you do run Sphere. Sorry, I'm thinking I had that different image in my head. So you run Sphere Confro. You have a lot of freestyle events here.
Yeah, so this is kind of just like the nature of this deck because Hero Boo automatically, like every Hero Boo deck, in my opinion, is gonna immediately run these events. Like I can't change that. Whoopfizz 2, it has a lot of value with him. It's kind of his halt, for example. And then Unleashed, it just naturally has a synergy with him with Boo's company, and then Boo's company, he tutors it on one. It's a name card. Like that's kind of his engine. So you start off with at least 7 events, and then you've got you know that kind of clashes with the mission statement of the deck of having Clash of Wills, and then Confrontation is just a staple card. Heroic Energy Sphere, a staple card, and Overwhelming Power I added because I hate playing Red Ball, and this card just fucks Red Ball in this deck. So
I was talking to talking to Kevin Dennis about I like the Red Boo Red Inferno combination. When entering combat, you banish a card to get a crit. But I
mhm,
didn't even think about it. Overwhelming Power initially, you can tutor that card for double. You could do a double crit potential with that. But yeah, Overwhelming Power for a tutor crit on one is really really cool, for sure.
yeah, and a lot of the camp decks like Supreme Kai, Kami, Dende, who else would camp? Raditz, Roshi, all those decks, they're in A. They're in C. Boo is stronger than them. So you tutor overwhelming power, you're gonna be more powerful as well.
Mhm.
So I mean it's not as useful against like Vegito unless like you level up.
Yeah,
So but it still does have value in that matchup. Plus it's considered styled, so if you really don't need it, just pitch it to mastery.
that's pretty cool.
Mhm.
I do see the blue defensive effect at 3. That does actually, I see that goes. That has really nice synergy with the whole Clash of Wills thing. I noticed.
Yeah, this deck for a blue deck actually has like ridiculous endurance, which is probably my favorite part of blue defensive effect, but also the you can't raise anger. This deck versus something like Ascension Trunks is probably the funniest thing you will ever see. It can absolutely just dumpster that deck with all the cards that say you just can't gain anger, or lower your anger. Um, it's pretty evil. You have lower your anger 4 on level 1 with Hercule, like, it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's even against the best anger decks, this deck can be very detrimental to your opponent if that's, like, their sole win con.
So let's move into the attack lineup here. The attack lineup is really. There are some interesting choices here. I'll let you kind of take it away on these. I noticed there's no decap, for example, and well, I'll let you explain this lineup first before I ask too many questions.
Well, I'll start with no decap. I kinda hate decap lately. I play a lot of blue. That's, like, my favorite style is blue. I enjoy playing it even if I feel that it's not that great right now. And Decap in particular is a card that it just offers options. It doesn't offer the advantage of other decks. Like when I think of like what I'm playing against right now, it's like enhanced and combative. And both those decks, they're gaining a either card advantage or just like natural like with enhanced cards are being banished. So like Decap's a slower card where you're waiting for things to hit your discard pile if you're running 3, or
True. True.
you a lot of decks are running like discard banishment. Yeah, so Decap is just not a card that I've been thinking is that great
Yeah.
personally, in my experience.
And you do retrieve a fair amount too, so I suppose it would definitely not have consistency in that sense.
Well, in my opinion, Resolute is like really weak against black, and Decap opens up an even greater weakness against discard hate, which black is already good at. So by not playing decap, I'm not playing into my already weakness. I'm playing into
Hmm.
something else.
That is a really good point actually. I've been having a hard time fitting decap myself in a lot of blue decks.
Yeah, I
Good
just
point you brought up was it gives options, and you're not playing a million different kinds of blue physicals that you'd want to copy. You've really got a smaller selection, which hurts the value even further.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. You definitely are pigeonholed if you do the decap. It feels like too. So.
yeah,
Um.
and just one more thing on decap. When I built this deck, another thing that I had in mind is like, okay, I'm playing all these decks with like the tried and true like blue like blue staple cards and it's not working for me. So let's just start with Head Knock and Betrayal and go from there. So that was another reason why I've totally omitted Decap from even being in this deck.
Yeah. So you do have, we were talking about a little bit before, and you do have Blue Slash as a 2 of, and you have it kind of sideways.
Mhm.
Any reasoning versus a 3
Uh,
of?
yeah, so I specifically tapped Blue Clash because don't I think this card's actually gonna get cut. It does really good in matchups like Black Manipulative, anything that's trying to like prevent damage or. But the problem is that like it doesn't synergize with Dig. Where in this deck your Hero Buu, your Resolute Hero Buu. So you're trying to get to 4 and do +4 life cards with Dig, no prevention, just kill your opponent, no questions asked. Where Slash is really good, but I feel like it's just damage. That's all it does. So I'm thinking of changing it out for something that maybe gives me anger to get me up to a higher level or do just have like more utility versus like this card is literally just damage in this deck. Lower your opponent's anger 1 is almost pointless in a deck that has 3 wall breaker, 3 defensive effect, 3 knee clash. Like it
Yeah,
just serves
that's fair.
almost no point. And 3 head knock. Like those cards you are fine against anger. The lower anger 1 is it's just inconsequential at that point.
Yeah, I suppose ultimately, if you think about it, just turns. Well, I mean, it is a 10 card. It can be a 10 life card swing on level 4 potentially, which is kind of neat.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
I
but
mean,
if we start talking about 10 life card swings, I mean, even Hercule does
yeah,
5 life cards each time you use him.
yeah, that's fair. That is fair. So you choose to run. I mean, OPA makes some sense. I mean, I know even with company, you're not always going to be guaranteed the allies, and they can't get crit, especially Hercule. Um, Wallbreaker at 3. You just really, really, yeah, I see really maximizing that anger hate there.
Yeah, you just wanna always be in a position where if you draw Clash of Wills, you're gonna be able to use it,
That is, oh
which,
yeah, that's true. That's true.
you don't because it's not something that you can discard with the mastery or anything, you don't have any effects to get it out of your hand, so, um for the most part, every time I've drawn Class of Wills, I've been able to use it either against a camp deck or I've had Wallbreaker attached. I've been in a defensive effect combat. I've had an E-Clash in hand. There have been a couple times where, I'm kind of stuck with it or I have to use it when my opponent can level with it. But
Yeah.
um, for the most part, like the 3 Wallbreaker, 3 defensive effect, 3 Knee-Clash is actually proven kind of ridiculous in practice, and it's funny when somebody confrontations or stare downs you, and they have to hit Clash of Wills because you've got the sauce.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
fun. That's nice.
mhm, and this deck actually does have, like, quite a bit of endurance too, like, um, if you hit them with a wall breaker, it might be, like, very difficult for them to get out of it.
Indeed. I'm so Clash definitely. I see that card being good. The Retaliation's an interesting choice over like say like Neck Beam.
Yeah, let me, fix my screen here. Retaliation is a card that I've been running, like I started with 2 of in this deck, and then I went to 3 of after playing the deck because it just I guess this is gonna contradict myself, but on level 4, it's just damage, like, it's an 11 life card attack.
Yeah.
But also, on the lower levels, it gives you stages back, and, you can pay for it with your allies, so there is I've never been stage locked out of using this card yet,
Hmm.
but, maybe that will happen in the future.
That's fair.
Uh, in a lot of the Resolute decks I've been building, I've been putting this card in as a 3 of. It just seems like all of a sudden, I don't know what it is. It's the endurance, it's the damage. Something about it has been working for me. Like every time I play the card, I'm like, dang, I'm all of a sudden I'm winning the game. So I don't
Yeah.
know. I like it. I'm gonna keep playing it.
What do you think, Shane? I know you've been playing some blue lately.
Never play Retaliation. My least favorite card in the deck, but uh, I get hit with it, and I'm just like, I can't believe this is happening to me. Actually sucks so much. And it's hard for me to hate on a card with 4 endurance. Like the thing about Retaliation is that it's not just damage, even though it is just damage, like it always has value in some way. So that makes it a high impact card.
Yes, that's true.
Any card with
Mm.
this many fours written on it has to be some type of good.
It's gotta be some the triple fours. Just gotta be some magic, and of course dig, and Cinch Choke. I mean, I guess I don't. I think these cards are pretty self-explanatory. It's kind of the same thing with Clash. I mean,
I do want to say with Dig, I think just Hero Buu is the best abuser of that card right now.
I think so.
Um,
I think I would agree.
yeah, like if you have B in play, you hit with Dig, your opponent doesn't stop it, and it's not as much. They're not as much a threat to you as you are to them. You're gonna level up. You're gonna get a double attack that's at least gonna do 5 life cards unpreventable twice. Rejuvenate some cards. Like Hero Buu is really disgusting with Dig.
Yeah.
And then Sin Choke is, like you said, self-explanatory. It's just more damage. In this deck, you can throw a 7 life card. I'll dig your grave that raises your anger on hit, which to me is just that does put a smile on my face.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean the attack lineup is. I mean the retaliation is the. So the wall breakers, I could see people not running. I could definitely see the retaliation not necessarily making, but they're. It's you've done a good job of explaining why everything works, and I definitely it's definitely made me eye up retaliation quite a bit, like
I'd be
a bit
curious
more.
to see what you would put in its place.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking most of the time it's like neck beam was really just because it's the similar, it's the utilitarian effect. But you
Yeah,
also, but with that said, it's like you have unleash to drop other unleash decks, you have dig to level up camp decks, and then you also want, you have wall breaker defensive effect that stop anger gain entirely. You have head knock, you have critical damage, um, so I can see. I could
yeah,
see why, you don't need neck beam. So it's
yeah,
interest it's
That comes
interesting.
to mind for me just now would be like Blanketing Blast, which is
Yeah,
a
that's
similar big attack, big stage cost, big endurance, all of which are a little smaller than Retaliation.
yeah.
But losing the 4 stage gain, uh, even though there's not a lot of energies in this deck, there's what, literally 7?
hmm
That could end up mattering in certain
That's true.
matchups. Like I've
That's
never
true.
seen Anthony get boned because he plays Retaliation.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. Like, if you play, what I was thinking is with retaliation. I mean, same thing with neck being my sense, but like because the discard game 4. But like, you are in a physical matchup and you are at 0. You pitch retaliation. You gain 4. Now you're going to prevent 8 plus gain 4, so you effectively can soak up 12 damage at worst, and none of your
yeah,
powers cost stages. So it's like it's
and
pretty strong, and plus having the endurance, on itself. So
I
that's
need
one
more
thing
endurance in this deck.
I was gonna say is this deck, like if you look at the attack lineup, very few of the attacks, what, uh, 3 of them cost
stages.
stages. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's a big. Resolute is like really bad against physical beats right now because
Yeah.
it just doesn't have the action economy. So that's one thing I do enjoy about this deck. Like Resolute Vegito on paper should be better, but because all of his powers like cost stages,
Yeah.
he's not.
Yeah, he's a victim to stage needing stages, but and if your anger gets interacted with at all, you're not leveling. So,
Yeah.
well, interesting. We're speaking of the kind of generating advantage, generating stages, or card advantage. There's one card specifically in the block lineup. I guess if we want to segue over to there, the blue guard is definitely still a huge, awesome card. I love that card's interaction with Resolute for a 2-card draw. That is huge.
Mhm. Yeah, Blue Guard I have a love-hate relationship with, because even with 2 freaking allies in this deck, I could discard and banish Blue Guard on turn 1 and draw both of them. So,
Yeah,
like
that's fair. That's fair.
yeah, or, you're in the Energy Beats matchup, you discard and banish Blue Guard, and you draw freaking blue leverage and then blue deterrence, it's like, "Okay, I guess just lose," but, orange has the option to shuffle around their discard pile and kinda interact with that. I won't get into all that. But, yeah, one of the cards I would cut blue slash for is I'd increase blue narrow escape to 3.
I was about to ask if you would if that would be a potential add because I'm surprised you don't run it at 3. I mean, I guess I consider why. I think Energy Beats doesn't exist as much, and it's a bit slow. It's generally a bit slower than physical. It seems like, so it feels like between your rejuve and endurance, you can kind of get away with that.
Well,
Not running a 6 dedicated, but
this deck can sort of, I don't wanna overstep here, but it can keep up with a lot of, like, the big damage, like, when you say Energy Beats, I immediately think to freaking Adaptive 18 because I
yeah,
or Adept 18 is one that I've been running this up against lately, and, like, even with this block lineup, it keeps up with it just because the damage is there, like, you can totally tear into another deck if you're
yeah,
in, like, a time combat or a dig combat, like, you can just totally rip the game from them really quickly. So
yeah. That's fair. I mean,
mhm,
that is one thing. I mean, I was playing Future Gone today, and I got to level 3 Gohan. It was just like the W's attack was just so strong. I had forgotten how strong that was. You know, he was similar to Hero Buu in that he scaled really well with like digging him up.
mhm,
But Buu just like because of B always gets a double action. So especially with the dig, I can totally understand that. It's almost like you don't.
yeah, in my
He makes up
opinion
for the lack of actions from Blue.
yeah, in my opinion, and that brings me to something to it it reminds me of something that Kevin said about Boo that I think is pretty good. But, I think, your opponent should probably get rid of B, like, early. If they see the card to get rid of him, just get rid of him so you can deal with your opponent's bullshit later
Yeah.
and not have to deal with the action economy of Boo. But, Kevin said something really, really good about this deck, I think, that Boo is the only MP, I think, that can really run this weird your opponent can't gain anger build because he supplies the attacks. Like I don't have to run that many attacks
Yeah.
because Boo kind of completes the engine while the deck is like doing something totally different, which I thought was pretty insightful.
That's it. That is an interesting. That's some interesting commentary. I've been because I thought about the kind of. I mean, I've thought about the combo too a little bit. I thought about defensive effect with like Clash of Wills well before Knee Clash came out. Because I've wanted to
Mhm,
try to get some decks that abuse like a level 3 or 4 or something really bad. But yeah. I've even thought about Wall Breaker Clash of Wills, but to have them both, and these two cards that make that it help enable Clash very well. Yeah, I mean, Boo definitely can make up for the lack of aggro
mhm.
and it found in the deck for sure. So that's it. Plus, he gets tech on his. He does have some tech once he gets to 3 and 4. He kills 3 kills what's set up our ally, and then 4 I believe destroys.
Destroys all allies. Yep.
Yeah, when it hits there. Okay, so 4 doesn't have any tech when it gets there, but
Well,
three does.
when you uh, when you reach the level 4, it destroys all allies in
Yeah,
play.
the ally part. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So he's good
Which
against allies, but
I have probably like 5+ games. I've been on level 4 with both allies out. It's actually
yeah.
pretty consistent.
I mean, you can recover him pretty well with company. So
Yeah,
what?
company, or if you have overpowering attack in play, like, all right, just hold this 9 life card overpowering attack that puts Hercule in play, that does another 5 life card attack. It's just sometimes this deck can just be so overwhelming. It's actually like I don't know. I think this is like the cusp of being so good. That's why I wanted to do it today.
Yeah. Well,
Mhm.
I'm just looking at the last few blocks we haven't touched yet. We did talk about, I mean, time is time. Knee clash we talked about a fair amount. Leverage, I mean, leverage is just, I feel like you just level so easily that leverage is just, it's just a constant free scry draw.
Yeah, and also, I mean, even if your opponent puts a card in your hand, I run 2 dead cards in this deck. Uh, no matter what, your opponent's probably putting a live card in your hand.
Yeah,
And then also the thing about leverage is, um, a lot of the physical beats decks are doing like multiple. They'll play like a bike kick or um, immediately I gotta like red double strike is like a double attack, or a lot of the physical beats decks will do a double attack, so you can leverage for more card advantage, more actions, that kind of stuff.
yeah.
Hmm.
No, I mean,
Leverage is really broken in blue because of the control your top deck for Resolute.
true,
So you just
true.
leverage.
Yeah,
No matter
your
It's
what,
opponent,
pretty busted.
yeah,
your opponent puts the blue retaliation in your hand that you can't actually play right now because you're stage locked, and then you discard it. Like that kind of situation is actually really good for you.
yeah, yeah. Blue
Mhm.
leverage is
No
just,
way you're gonna hit 3 bad cards. There's no
yeah.
way all 3 cards are gonna be bad. It's just not gonna happen.
Yeah, no. Yeah, this looks like an Anger Deck's nightmare. So I guess I'll just do some closing statements here. But Shane, any like closing things that like things in the list that you see that are kind of a miss to you, or a bit out of place, or just missing perhaps, or just something weird to you?
Card in the deck is pretty good. As I said earlier, Retaliation is the card that I think is the least good, but I've never seen it not be good when he plays it.
True.
I just feel that it shouldn't be good, and then I get hit with a 10 life energy attack, and I'm just like, well, that is how it is. What makes this deck really good, I think, is how important leveling and anger are to so many decks right now. And by making going all in with anti-anger part of this deck's beatdown strategy, it gives you almost unlosable matchups against so many decks that are trying to level with anger. You just dumpster them because you have Wall Breaker, Blue Defensive Effect, Blue Deterrent, Blue Head Nod, and that makes this deck very fearsome for certain metas, and especially when you're playing the really high tier stuff like Gohan and Vegito who want to level. You slow them down so much that you can get ahead of them very quickly.
One thing I do want to say is like kind of like something that if somebody looks at this and goes like, "Oh man, you run like no attacks." This deck, you can draw 4 non-attack cards and still throw 4 attacks in a turn. You can draw 4 non-attack cards and throw 6 attacks in that turn.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
um, like the damage is there. It's that's probably my favorite part about the deck.
That's really,
Just kind of bouncing off of what Shane said there.
no, it's really cool. I think this is a super neat list. I think Boo really takes this little engine that you've created with the events and like the wall breaker, um, and the knee clash. He just takes that engine and just pushes. I think he really does. He's got to be probably the one that maximizes this the most that I've seen,
Mhm.
for sure. It's a really cool list. Really cool list, Dan. Uh, closing, but I'll say another closing thing. Um, what? So we talked a little bit about maybe what else you'd throw in, but what would you say that this? I mean, what would you say is like the strong matchup and the bad matchup right now for you?
Um, the strong matchup is definitely. Uh, it goes without saying the anger matchup. Like this deck, just it runs all the cards that say you can't gain anger. I mean, not all of them. I'm hyperbolizing there, but it
Yeah,
runs a lot of the ones that you want at the very least. I could see you throwing like controlled energy burst in here and just making that matchup just even worse for your opponent because then they're watching for wall breaker, they're watching for that, they're watching for defense. Like there's just too many moving parts. Um, I think with overwhelming power, actually, like this deck is really good against the ball deck because even if they're like red ball and like balling out super fast, one overwhelming power going into combat and then destroying like whatever obnoxious setups they have in play is like it's enough to buy you the time that you need
Yeah.
to get that critical damage off of damage or whatever. Um, so I really think it's other survival decks, which is annoying to say because Boo does have like he's got good life card modifiers, he's got enough rejuvenation, but I mean just the fact is that like you know enhanced orange those type of decks like they're doing a lot of damage that you can't necessarily do something about and like talking about orange and even a little bit of red, like Tandem Blast and Sweeping Blast is something I had written down as like the non-styled hate.
Yeah.
Just absolutely. But this is a problem across all blue decks, in my opinion. It's not just this deck. It's
Yeah.
all blue decks are like this right now, where because the cards aren't that great, you're running a lot of freestyle cards, and then you get fucked. So
Well, I really appreciate it. I think this is a really killer list. It's super interesting, and I may or may not take some time to actually play it myself. I think this is probably better than any Resolute Buu that I've come up with a few different lists, and it looks way better than any of the ones I made. So I really commend you for it. Awesome list, man.
yeah, I appreciate that. If you do play it, please let me know because I'm curious to see. I hope other people try this because I think the meme of Clash of Wills like probably turns a lot of people off, but when you play it, you're like, why do I have Knee Clash and Clash of Wills in my hand at the same time? This is like,
This is just free.
why is this working?
Oh my
Because that's
gosh.
what happened to me the first time I played it.
Yeah.
Like in episode 1 where Anakin turns on his pod. It's
It's
working!
working. It's
Mhm.
It's
working.
working!
Oh my god.
I'm
Yeah.
riding the bike.
I quote that all the time at work. Well, thanks, guys. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries.
That's a
Thanks
good
for
trick.
coming
Well, I hope everyone who's watching this enjoyed. I just want to again say thanks to Anthony and Cheyne for coming in, commenting, and hopefully you guys are out there still playing deck building. If you would like to yourself try to get a deck that you have built on here, just shoot me a message sometime, either Facebook or YouTube, and I'll try to get back to you. But take it easy, guys, and peace.